Hey friends, the Witty Bitty here, just coming to share a little bit about one of my personal favorite big bad evil guys. This one happens to be Sibilant Shade, the Shadow Dragon, or Oraclerosa, as was her given name. Now, she did eventually become one of the most feared Dracoliches of all time, and rightly so. Now, let me give you a little bit about her beginning story, because I did turn her into a one-shot, and a lot of it does pertain to this particular part of it. Born in the year 426 by Dale reckoning, she did reside in her mother's lair for a while before she decided that it was time to strike out on her own and see the world. So eventually she finds her way to the Thunder Peaks. Now, of course, she was very much noticed when she arrived, for how do you not know when a dragon enters your area? However, she was very smart, and she laid low and just kind of kept her head down, and after like 100 years they just kind of were like, whatever, yeah, we'd heard that there was a dragon, but obviously it's not here anymore. So for a few hundred years she just drifted off into a sleep afterwards, just that, when you're laying low, sometimes you just gotta take a nap. It's the easiest way to do it. But unfortunately, there was a dwarven city called Thunderholm not too far from where she had taken up her lair. Now, they did have miners, of course, being dwarves, and some of those miners had delved a little too deep into that mountainside, and they accidentally awoke her. Now, she, of course, slaughtered all of them, but she was smart and cunning enough to make it appear as if it was an accident. Rocks fall, you all die. And she certainly did stage it as if it was just a cave-in, and nobody ever suspected her. However, she was now awake. And what else would a person such as her do but scry and spy on that dwarven city, because certainly it piqued her interest. So, she did eventually come upon a target of someone that she kind of thought she could manipulate and use to her whims, and that was Dagon, the high priest of Demiathan. Now, Demiathan is a dwarven goddess, and she was very much revered in this city. And, the high priest is the high priest, but see, she did not reveal who she truly was to him. She simply whispered to him little tips and tricks, and eventually won him over to her side. And all her little whispering is how she got the name Sibilant Shade, which is the one that I prefer out of the many out there. So she kind of just, whispered these things to him for a long time, and he got to trust her, and then she started to realize, hey, I definitely can manipulate him to my needs. So eventually, something happens to the king. Not suspicious at all, right? And then all of his heirs are also have mysterious accidents. And if you're questioning if she had something to do with it, you would be 100% correct. So now here comes Dagon, the high priest. He is now regent of this dwarven city of Thunderholm. And, of course, essentially, there are no heirs. He's deemed to be the perpetual regent. What else are they going to do? So eventually he does set up what is supposed to be a shrine of sorts to, dedicating this to Demiathan. But when he unveils it to all of those dwarves gathered around, to their shock and horror, they discover that it is instead dedicated to the draconic god of death, Null. For you see, Sibilant Shade had always wished to be the consort of Null. She wanted to hitch her wagon to a star, and she thought if she could become his consort, then surely she would gain that power herself. Now, back to Thunderholm. Of course, the dwarves were outraged. This was their goddess, this temple that had been dedicated to her, the shrine. It was meant to be for Demiathan, but instead it's a draconic god of death. How could this be? So, It didn't take long, of course, for Sibilant Shade to come and quickly put their worries to rest, as she slaughtered all of them but 30. And the 30 that survived, she slowly picked off bit by bit and added them to her army of the undead. For yes, indeed, she was a very talented spellcaster on top of everything else. So, now that she had her official lair, which would be the ruined dwarven city of Thunderholm, she went on to do some very, very terrible things, and eventually she was contacted by the Cult of the Dragon, which, for those of you that don't know, they are essentially the ones that worship dragons. They believe dragons are going to be the ones that end up ruling the world, and they wanted to turn her into a Dracolich so that she would live forever. And of course, she was smart enough. Very, very, don't get me wrong, she's super intelligent, right? So she completely, she acts like she doesn't want to do it. She's not interested. Of course, this is her ultimate plan, but she acts like she's not interested. No, I don't want this. I'm good. How are you going to convince me? And eventually she's able to get herself out of all of the sort of restrictions that would be put on a Dracolich. So then she gets turned, and I don't know if you know how Dracoliches are turned, but they essentially drink a potion that almost instantly melts away all of their flesh and just leaves behind the bones. And when this happens, their soul gets sort of sucked into a gem of their choosing, which becomes their phylactery, which they then hide and, try to keep safe, because that is, essentially how they survive. Because if their current form dies, their phylactery will still contain their soul, and they can become another dragon of whatever sort, be it, fire, acid, whatever type of dragon they end up being. So you never know exactly what a Dracolich will be. Anyhow, yes, so how I run my one-shot is eventually, since she is a shadow dragon and she has set up the lair, and this does take place in Verun, I like to flavor it that she is essentially having these portals that are opening, and the Shadowland is starting to come, and there's mist everywhere. I use animated maps. It looks really fantastic. But yes, they have to go and they have to fight her. I won't go into her entire story because this video is already pretty long. But yes, that is one of my favorite monsters. And again, she did not make it into 5e, which is such a shame. So of course I did have to implement her and redo her stat block and all that. Actually just essentially create one for her, but it was so fantastic and so fun. And it's one of my most popular ones, mostly probably because I'm so passionate about it. I really enjoy playing that one with everyone. But yes, that is the story. Part of it, anyways, of the dreaded Dracolich, Sibilant Shade. Alright, everyone, well, again, best of luck with all of your games, and as always, may the dice roll ever in your favor.